Republicans in the legislature finally passed their state budget last week, but it wasn't unanimous and it wasn't without some drama. Most notable was an 11th-hour attempt to make major changes to Wisconsin's open records law, changes opponents said would virtually gut transparency in government. The governor and leaders in both houses quickly backed off the idea, with the Assembly passing a resolution backing the state's commitment to open government. One member of Joint Finance even apologized. That lawmaker, Representative Dale Cuenga of Brookfield, joins us now on Up Front. Representative, good to have you back on the program.
Always good to be here.
And you voted for the budget that contained this provision. And then later you said, the more I found out about it, the more I worried about it. And then you apologized. Why did you feel the need to apologize?
Yeah, I think people want transparency. People know that I'm a details guy, and so when they send me to Madison, they say Dale gets in the details. And essentially what happened is that there was a lot of items before us, and the briefing, the way it goes, say, hey, this key stuff is consistent with U.S. Congress, this is most of the other states. Find out later that wasn't necessarily true. And so when we're wrong, and sometimes in every profession we're wrong, you have to come out there and apologize. And so I was wrong. It was a bad vote. I was wrong. And so less than 2 business days later, we actually pulled that out. And so I think what we need to do going forward is we not only say, hey, that was the wrong vote, but we need to have a process that provides some more transparency to the public, saying, here's what we're voting on, and have it out there at a time period before we actually vote on it.
So at least 24 hours before?
At least 24 hours. So I think that the public is also part of the vetting process for these policies, and the public should have more of a say. And this is a process that's been around for 100 years on joint finance, right? Democrats and Republicans have done it, but I think we need to take a step back and provide more transparency and more public input before we go ahead and vote on items.
So how did this happen, from your perspective? I've heard a lot of different explanations for how it happened. Who wanted this in the budget?
Yeah, I think there's leadership actually said, you know, this makes sense for these reasons, and I'll give you one example. I mean, John Nygren has been a lead in our state on heroin addiction. Right. He has a daughter, unfortunately, who has heroin. And so he gets emails at his office and says, you know what, our family doesn't really know, the community doesn't know, but we have a daughter or son with heroin, and we just want to let you know how much we appreciate your efforts on this. It's making a difference, making a change, and really appreciate that. I don't think those folks know that their name and their daughter's name or son's name and heroin addiction is now in the public sphere. And so folks like John Nygren would say, you know what, we should have a process that actually pulls that back so that it actually protects those individuals. Now, we should have that conversation, but once again, we should have that conversation of public input with the press's input, and that didn't happen. That's why we went the route we did and said, you know what, time out, let's pull this out, and let's talk about it in a different
So do you anticipate we will have this conversation about making changes, modifications to the open records law?
Yeah, the Speaker has said that he wants to have a conversation with that.
Do you support that?
I think conversations are what we do. Having conversations about things should never be frowned upon.
Let's talk about the arena situation. Very likely there will be a vote, at least in one of the houses, this week. Tell us about the Assembly right now. Based on your take of the situation, are there enough votes there to pass a new arena for downtown Milwaukee?
There's not enough Republican votes, and I think that the arena deal as is now framed really protects the state taxpayers, and we got to look at the county still and figure that all out. But I'm getting to a point where I'm feeling more and more comfortable with the package. But essentially, this is an opportunity for the first time in 4 or 5 years for the Democrats to come, especially the Milwaukee area, and they have to say, we want to be part of the solution, we want to be a part of the process. And they're really not stepping up right now. We hear a lot of criticism from Senator Taylor on the committee the other day. Senator Carpenter has used this as a political, in my opinion, grandstanding for his run for alderman. And essentially, we can't get everyone in the Republican Party throughout the state to support an arena. We need people in their backyard to stand up and say, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to work with Republicans and figure something out that works for Milwaukee.
This makes sense to you? You would vote for this if this came to
Yeah, there's some things I still want to be, I guess, questions on some matters. There's some things I would like to see changed, and we're working that out. But I think where we're headed right now makes a lot of sense.
So why haven't you been able to persuade, or why, I shouldn't say you, but why haven't Republican leadership been able to persuade other Republicans in the party that this is good financial sense? What is not connecting with the outstate Republicans?
I mean, I think you're looking at 80% of both chambers of the Republicans committing to it, but if you get 20% that fall off, you don't have enough votes to pass something. And so this is tough politics. I mean, even when it's framed in a way that the players are paying $6.5 million into Madison every year in income taxes, and the state's going to get $4 million of that back, that's hard to explain in politically if you're in northern Wisconsin or western Wisconsin. And so I don't blame them. I mean, they want to be there to achieve other objectives, education objectives, tax cut objectives, whatever the objectives are, and they don't politically want to be hit for something that Democrats in Milwaukee themselves won't support.
Senator Julie Lassa was on this program last week, and she said, well, you know what? Democratic lawmakers have not been at the table for any of these negotiations. The door was basically shut to us. Now they need our votes. Now they need our help. Yeah. You're a guy, you're on joint finance. Yeah. How would you feel if you had not been part of any of the discussions, any of the negotiations, and now somebody's saying you have to vote for this?
Well, first of all, no one's saying you have to vote for this. Essentially, I wasn't involved in the details of the conversation either. And there have been Democrats at the table. I mean, last time I checked, Mayor Barrett is a Democrat. Chris
but no
Gately
legislators.
is a Democrat.
And no Milwaukee legislators.
Right, and they're there right now. And I think right now, Senator Fitzgerald, I know, has reached out to Senator Schilling. I know Representative Foss has reached out to Representative Barca. And those conversations are happening right now. All right.
Representative Dale Quenga of Brookfield, we appreciate your time. Always good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
And my conversation with Representative Quenga continues now on our website, where we're talking about his plan to create what he calls Opportunity Schools, a turnaround district in the Milwaukee Public Schools. You'll find it on WISN.com. Scott Walker is leading the polls in Iowa. Next, I'll ask an Iowa political writer which other candidates Walker should be worried about in the Hawkeye State.